Okay, item number 3, approval of the agenda. I'll ask for a motion, please,
So moved. Second.
and a roll call.
Sarchet?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
DeVorak?
Yes.
Item 4, public comments. The time and place for comments for any item other than those that are a public hearing. Have we had anybody request to speak?
No, sir.
Okay, we will move on then to item 5, consent agenda items, and I'll ask for a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Walters?
Yes.
DeVorak?
Yes.
Sarchet?
Yes.
Item 6, our lone business item, Resolution 2022-92, approving preliminary plat site plan for Scooters Commons.
Yeah, I can run through it real quick. I believe Wally Peltz is here if you have any questions. Essentially, Scooter's proposing to build a drive-through coffee shop on the strip kind of between the old Luana Bank building and the chiropractor building. There's kind of a vacant strip there on an L-shaped piece of property. That property is being platted into 2 lots, the south portion being for scooters, the north portion will be for future development. The final plat will be before you perhaps next time, but as soon as they have the legal documents in place. So we're asking that the site plan preliminary plat would go through now, and that the final plat would just have to go through before a building permit is issued. The building looks real similar to the one, that if you saw the one in Ankeny up by the fairway. Kind of, they're similar. They have 2 formats, but this is their standalone type building. They'll enter from the north and exit from the south, so there's plenty of queuing distance. P&Z did approve it subject to a maximum of 98.65 square feet of signage on it. Looked at it from a standpoint of it being very unique in that it's less than 700 square feet in size for the building. So the sign ordinance really wasn't geared for buildings that small. So we'll be taking a look at that. That's all I have. If you have any questions.
Is it Wally, is that what you said?
Yeah, Wally Peltz.
Wally?
Yep.
I don't know if you have anything to share, but come forward if you do.
I certainly get myself on the record. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council. Wally Peltz with Peltz Design Services, 2323 Dixon Street, Point Iowa, 516. As Kathleen did a great job, pretty much said about everything I would have said about our store. It's a simple little store. You've seen them all over the place. Our biggest concern at P&Z again was the signage, because the ordinance isn't designed for small buildings necessarily, but that's a big part of our brand, right, for scooters, is to have that name on the side. So they agreed to approve it with that caveat, and we would ask for your support for our site plan and pre-plan.
Any questions?
I am curious, a great addition, I think it's perfect spot for that lot. I'm curious if there's any thoughts on the remaining lot down the road, or?
Right now, it's just a speculative parcel. I think it came as one big one, and we don't need all of it for the scooters, so like take opportunities for someone else to potentially look at that one.
Yeah, I ask because we had discussions with the previous owner, I think going back a ways, and the lot size with the small amount facing the road, which you're taking up as the prime real estate that it is, so no issues with that. That was just with the remaining piece, but like I said, the addition seems worthwhile to me, so.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful addition, and the more services we can have here, better. You know, we do have people support it very well. I think you'd be very surprised and happy with what you probably see here, because those are the types of amenities that we need here in Polk City.
Fantastic.
And what's your construction schedule?
When can we get a building permit? After the final plat, right?
Yeah, well, you can actually apply for the building now. Just would be issued before, the final plat, I believe, is ready, other than just depending on where you are with legal documents.
Right. Well, there's an abstract issue. Unless Jake, so Jake is from Scooters, and he's here if you have any questions for him. But I think that covers the build schedule. I mean, we'd like to start as soon as There were questions asked on how long it does take. It's about 12 weeks to build one from start to finish and have it open. So before Christmas,
It involves before the end of the year, so all of our families be a lot happier.
So where is Scooters located, or is it a franchise?
It's a franchise based out of
Sure.
Omaha.
That's
and
what I
we're just a family group. We're based out of Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay.
So we've got some historic areas.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve resolution 2022-92.
Second that?
Roll call, please.
Dvorak,
Yes.
Sarchet,
yes.
Walters.
yes,
Moving on.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you very much, Wally, for coming forward. Item number 7, reports. I guess we'll begin with anything from staff members. No. Nothing? Chelsea,
I have nothing.
council members?
I do want to talk a little bit about the festival.
Thank
So,
you.
Festival was last weekend, enjoyed it, got, cooperation or by our exceedingly low standards for weather, what passes for cooperation from the weather, previous however many years have had heat or storm or something, but, the festival itself was fine. I think our past 2 years of planning have been probably some of the roughest, I don't even know what they call it, lack of volunteer engagement, lack of community engagement. And I bring that up not to cry over spilled milk, but to somewhat explain how we got to this position and then where I think we need to go forward. So, coming out of the pandemic, I'll admit, the year of the pandemic, the festival was canceled. At that time, there was what I would consider a small but active planning committee. And the festival was canceled 2020, 2021. There was some changeover with Go Polk City, and that committee was unilaterally disbanded or just ignored, quite honestly. And that to me is pretty egregious. I don't think that employees, and certainly not volunteers, should be treated in that fashion. And quite honestly, would like to see some sort of apology and recognition. Part of that, I think, we can take care of next year with the festival. But from that point, the mini fest was planned last year, again with very little input, with very little discussion about we're going to scale it back to what end and what would be included. And then immediately after last year's festival, which was labeled the mini festival, the same exact festival was planned without calling it a festival, which leads me to that that was somewhat of the plan all along. And I expressed some frustration, was quite frankly lied to most of last year in the fall leading up to it. Shame on me for not recognizing that, but and there's been some personnel changes with Go Polk City that probably address the lion's share of the issues that led us to this point. But I do think that just an extreme failure by personnel within Go Polk City. I think a failure of the board in the role of oversight, and then a failure on our part for also our role as oversight. And I say that because, again, no voice of the customer, as we call it in a day job, or the citizens' desires was ever addressed to my knowledge. And so that's something that I think needs to be fixed. Needs to be fixed in structural fashion, where one person or a small group of people without the long-term interests or what I would deem long-term interests of the town are put to the forefront or being discussed. So I want to see from soup to nuts a complete overhaul of how our decisions are made, and who approves them, and how the thing is completely organized. And it's not so much, again, about the product of the festival, although I think, when you have face painting and different activities for 2 or 3 hours and the line's 45 minutes, it's hard to really justify some of those things. And just as an example, another example, basing more activities at the square, I think is also a very important thing. And whatever gets landed on, if we would have tried to put forth a different festival coming out of COVID and landed on this spot, that's fine. But again, it was not done in that fashion, and that to me is the most disappointing part of this. So I don't have all the answers, but I am more than happy to lead the charge in a way that does engage a broad number of folks, and that does allow for what I think are the broad interests of town. Some things maybe not practical, financially viable, all those things, but and some of this will certainly result in some work by staff. I think there's practical ways to minimize that, and things can be done. So, it's a weekend activity, and inevitably that's going to cause a little bit more work, but I think it can be marginally more work, and work that isn't onerous to the departments that do. I want to thank particularly Public Works for kind of bending over backwards for a new group of folks, myself included, leading the parade. And again, I think their safety needs to be a concern, obviously. Financial concerns, that some things that were practical prior to the pandemic may not be anymore. But I think that we need to make an effort and have a festival that we can be proud of, trying to have a good festival, not trying to have, quite honestly, as minimal, as passable of a festival as possible. So, hadn't made any public comments prior to this, and so, like I said, I wanted to make sure that people know that we didn't land in this spot by design, or at least by the folks that are still here, and hope to address that in a significant way. Little soapbox there. I did have some stuff to get off my chest. So.
Thank you. Anybody else from the council? Jeff, anything? Doesn't sound like.
No.
No? Okay.
Question.
Yeah. I don't really have anything other than to say, from my standpoint in the parade, it was just great fun. It was our first parade, and we got rid of an awful lot of candy and waved and talked to an awful lot of great people. So we just had a great time. So that said, we'll move on to item number 8, which is adjournment, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So,
And all in favor, say aye.
I
Same sign for those opposed. Hearing none, we're adjourned to August 8th. Thank you.